afternoon, everybody. Good morning, or whatever time you're listening to this. Welcome to Camel City Chat. I'm your host, John McPherson, and I'm here with Is There a Job You Don't Do? This is the locked-in episode of Camel City Chat with my friend Algenon Cash. Welcome to the chat.
John, thank you for having me on. This is going to be fun.
We're going to have fun because I'm going to find out after, how long have you been doing this?
What, my whole locked-in movement?
How long have you been in Winston doing all that? When did you start Wharton Gladden?
Oh, man, 2003, but I've been in Winston-Salem my entire life, yep.
Yeah, so I think I probably ran into you probably first time maybe about 2006, 7, 8, 9, probably with Wendy and stuff like that. So I'm finally now going to find out all the things you do. We're gonna lock us in.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So first of all, let's do the first three questions, and then once we get from there, we got to find out from everybody what you got to tell us what locked in is. I got to write that down as my note there.
All right.
All right. So question number 1 is the two-parter. Where are you from, and how long have you been here?
Yeah, born and raised in Winston-Salem.
Okay.
Grew up on the east side of town, right off of Liberty Street.
Okay.
And been here my entire life, except when I left to go to NC State for college.
Okay.
And came back home and been in Winston-Salem the rest of the time.
So do we have to do this when?
You can. I'm not one of those that get too much into the wolf pack and
Right.
all the various rivalries. So
Okay.
I try to be welcome everywhere I go, no matter what college I went to.
Well, and it's funny because the next question is going to be one that you're going to try to be welcome, but we're gonna pigeonhole you here a little bit. All right. So first of all, what is your favorite place to eat besides Zesto's?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Now the mayor said, "Oh, I love to go everywhere." So it's more as how about this?
Well, I won't say I love to go everywhere. I do love to support a lot of our local food owners and operators. I think one of the things that we have in Winston-Salem that a lot of other communities don't have, especially in our downtown community, we've got so many locally owned, chef-inspired concepts that quite frankly do a heck of a job on any given night. And so I am gonna toss out a few, and if I don't toss out yours, don't hold it against me. But one of my favorite places in downtown is by far Mission Pizza. So if you're looking for pizza, I love what Peyton Smith is doing over on that side of town.
And what I will interrupt and say to you about that is I knew you were going to say that. You know why? Because in your last article where you're talking about local, you said, hey, when you walk into one restaurant, you're not going to see the owner serving you. But the last time I was at Mission, Peyton was on the line making sure it got done.
Yeah, and I've even went in and worked the line with Peyton before. That's how fascinated I was in his concept and wanted to learn more about what he was doing.
Right.
But you've got Mission, who does a great job. You've got Juan Casino and Rico Hernandez down at Ex Corrette doing a heck of a job. You got Chef Adam over at Jeffrey Adams,
Right.
Along with Chef David Swing. They're getting ready to launch the Young Cardinal,
Yep.
which I think is going to be tremendous. You've got the guys Mitchell and John B. down at Cranky's, who I think do a heck of a job in the mornings for breakfast. And you've got Chef Tim Grandinetti over at Quanto Boston Springhouse doing a heck of a job. So with that much good food in town, I think you'd be hard pressed to say one is your favorite over the other. More so, I try to look at genres of food. So if I've got a taste for something specific, who's really performing the best out of that category?
Yeah, and it's interesting because you named several of them. One that you didn't say that was in the article, sweet potatoes. They've done a really good concept. I like the guys at Meridian too. They've done some good stuff. But you can just walk down that street and there's a great restaurant. Or you walk into Rec Billiards and have a drink. It's just we're so lucky.
I don't get over. I used to get over more to support the group at Meridian. I need to go see them a little more often. It's been a little while since I've been down there. But then you've got Willow's on that side of town who does. I think they do a really good job. And then you've got some places in town that I continue to hear a lot about that I haven't even been able to try, like Moselle's, who I hear
Moselle's
a lot
is
about.
great.
They do a great job, and Delicio's and several other locally owned and operated and ran establishments. Now, I want to say, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the national chains, but I do try to remind people that even those national chains a lot of times are owned by somebody local. So, my good friend Daniel Butner, who owns Carrabba's here in town, I think they do a heck of a job, some of the best sausage and lentil soup. So my biggest thing is if you're going out to eat and you want to support our food and beverage community, try to do so and try to support local.
Daniel is just, it's kind of almost like a strange concept with Daniel because it's really not Carrabba's. That's Daniel's restaurant.
Yeah, he's
Anybody
made it
that
his own.
knows him, I've been there for so many events. I mean, he is at the front door greeting everybody, getting them in there, taking care of them, making sure. And oh, by the way, it's a national chain. It's just like with Coldwell Banker, where I work, a national chain, but it's locally owned, or Berkshire Hathaway, et cetera, all those kind of things. There are local people that are involved with all of these things. And so you do have to be careful when you say that you're not shopping. When you say shop local, I like how you had said in the article, and I know that some people are wondering that, how did I know this? It was not on tape, so I actually read the article. But
Some people still read.
yeah. But no, it was like, I'm not going to tell you to just go buy local. What I'm saying is support local businesses.
That's right.
And that was really powerful how you put it that way.
And I'll give a shout out to my good friend Mayor Newell Clark down in Lexington.
Right.
Mayor Clark did a whole support local campaign some years ago that I worked with them on, and that's really where we started to figure out that kind of messaging. Some people don't like to be told what to do, so they don't want to be told what to do with their dollars. But at the end of the day, right now, for example, we're running a ad in a high school yearbook here in town. Most times your large national companies are not supporting, a lot of the local institutions. And so, yes, we want to make sure that you're supporting our local small business owners, even like a Daniel Butner, who made the decision to go out and buy into a much larger national franchise.
Yeah, and it's I was on the Book of Faces the other day, and somebody was complaining about the fact that they had that they were having to go through hoops. They wanted to do a canned food drive in front of a grocery store. And so I asked the manager. The manager said, well, you'll have to ask them. And then you're going to have to go to this form and fill this, all that stuff. And she goes, all I'm wanting to do is have a group of scouts do a canned food drive in front of a grocery store, a local grocery store, where they're going to ask for people to buy the canned food from inside and bring it out to us. And she goes, it's just disgusting that I have to go through all this now to get something like that done.
Yeah.
So. All right, so favorite place to eat, but Zesto's is pretty good. We got to talk about it. Now, we're going to get to them, and I want to be hungry by the time that we get to there because, God, those wings are so good. And then what's your favorite thing to do?
Eat.
Yeah, right, really.
For some of the listeners that might know me, I probably don't look like it.
I'd said to something in the elevator.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you do this? You own a restaurant and you're skinny as all get out.
Yeah, my doctors say I'm a medical miracle. I'm literally the same weight I was the day I graduated high school. So I don't know. I stay pretty active too. But no. All jokes aside, I really years ago it would have been hard for me to label myself as a foodie.
Right.
And I'm still not sure if that's the right label that makes sense for me. I just really enjoy going out and enjoy good food. But more and so I enjoy the experience around it. So being able to sit down and break bread with another person and have conversation and learn from one another. I love the experience around food just as much as I love the food. And then as you've so noted, I really enjoy learning the stories behind these restaurants. So who owns it? Where did you come from? Why did you decide to do this? And so yeah, I love to go out to eat, but not just for the food, more for the experience.
It's one of my favorite little. You're downtown and you think about it. Where we are now in Stratford, Vin 205. It's you go to a couple places and everyone forgets about Vin 205. It's great food. And what's crazy about it is you go and there's a line for a restaurant or whatever. They usually you can get in pretty well. They've got poutine. They usually have a special poutine. It's got truffles or something like that on it. And so my wife will hit that sometimes on date night or things. But I love to go back, down there near the 6th Street and go into when they close everything off and do those gallery hops and stuff, going back into 6th and Vine into that little alcove back there with the lights on and have just a glass of wine and just talk about, the work week, life, whatever it's truly an experience that makes us appreciate who we are and where we are.
Yeah, and I've not been to the VIN 205, but I wrote that down.
Okay.
So I put that on my list of
It's
places
right
to try.
here.
Yeah,
It's just right down here, next to Piedmont Federal, LRB,
yeah,
and in that shopping center there.
yeah. No,
It's also a wine shop too during the day, and then I think they have lunch and dinner there.
well, I've got a growing list of places I need to get out and
We need
support.
to. Should we scroll
again,
them through like Star Wars credits?
If you're listening and you haven't seen me come in and support you, don't hold it against me. I'm gonna make my way around. But I do think part of what's happened in our country over the last several decades is that fast food and the idea of eating food very quickly or eating food very cheaply has lessened the experience associated with food.
Right.
And if you have the pleasure to go to Europe or other foreign countries, having lunch or having dinner or consuming food is more of an event, not just a single action. And so I've tried to learn from that. And even going back to my friend Peyton over at Mission Pizza, I think that's what they've captured so well over there. It's not just going in and grabbing pizza, but there's a whole experience associated with going into the place. And so that's what I'm trying to encourage our food community to even do more of here in Winston-Salem. We're actually working on developing the Forsyth Food and Beverage Coalition,
Okay.
which is a collection of our restaurant owners and operators here in town. We've already had somewhere around 20 different restaurants agree to sign up. And so we're trying to unite our food community, one, so that they can become more unified and speak with a stronger voice, but also because we think we can better educate the community about these food experiences that you're going to keep hearing me talk about.
Right.
And so, yes, we want people to start certain eating better quality, but eating a little slower and actually enjoying the experience associated with the food and not just the food itself.
Well, all right. So you're jumping out about 6 things on the list.
Oh,
but-
I'm sorry.
No,
I'm sorry.
no. But I think that we're there, so we have to talk about it. Couple years ago, I'm like looking online and I see what the heck is going on. Zesto's is history. Zesto's is investment. Zesto's is community, and Zesto's is the first new restaurant on that side of town in 2 or 3 decades.
Yeah, about 20 years for sure.
About 20
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
But you're training people to have the mentality of like, a Nordstrom's, a Chick-fil-A, what's the other one that someone had told me about? Like a Zappos or stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, when you go in there, you're going to experience someone that is happy to be at work, that's looking and realizing that this is the moment that they're going to make someone's day. It's clean as all get out. I mean, I was blown away, but I loved it. I ordered my food. I sat down. Somebody came over and said, "Hey, did you get your drink?" Or it's always an add-on, and it's not an add-on like it's like, "Hey, would you like fries with that?" It's an add-on after you've sat down that says, by the way, we do everything fresh. It's going to take a minute. Did you get a drink? No. Well, here, let me get you one. I mean, it's those type of add-ons just to be kind to people and help them understand and communicate. So I've told you my experience. Now you're the owner. You tell me what you were planning to do, and I'm hoping that they align.
Yeah. Well, well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for visiting, and certainly thank you for that glowing testimonial.
It's an
to
awesome
your
place to
listeners.
eat.
I appreciate that. We work really hard at it,
Right.
and we don't always get it right every day either, and we don't always get it right all day. But it is something that we're constantly focused on in terms of not just making sure you get fresh food and quality food and the food tastes good and it's made right, but that you also, again, going back to experience, that the service level is there, that the entire experience is one that you can be positive about. When you pull up at Zesto, we're probably one of the only restaurants in town that actually plays music in the parking lot, not just necessarily inside the store. And I get the question a lot of times, like, why do y'all play the music outside? Again, it's all psychological, and it's about the experience. When you pull up, it sets the tone for what your experience is going to be.
It's good music too.
Yeah, it's good. It's great music.
Yeah.
And so you come
Is that
in.
is that like what station is that?
Actually, it's a playlist that I created, and
Okay.
and what you'll find is as we open additional Zesto locations, that music, you'll hear that music, but it might be slightly different for
Right.
the location that it goes into,
Right.
so that it really takes on the character and the culture that's surrounding that particular store.
I got you.
And so that sets the tone as soon as you get out of your car. And when you come in, yeah, I mean, whether my employees are having a bad day or having a good day, quite frankly, what they realize and understand that's really, really important is that you didn't come here for that. You came here for a great experience, for great food. Whatever was going on at home before they came in that morning, they understand that they've got to leave that at home. They are still humans, and I
Oh, yeah.
remind people. I mean, they're not robots, so there are going to be times when
You don't
go
want them to be
in
robots,
and
yeah.
you go in and maybe Jemani has a weird look on her face, but I would say 98% of the time we welcome you with a smile. We do all the things that you just mentioned, and it's taken a long time and a lot of training to get my folks where they are. I mean, you're dealing with a lot of young folks that sometimes don't think that these things are really important. As long as you get the food, then everything is okay, right?
Right,
But
yeah.
so we have to really help them understand why the soft skills and some of these other things are just as important as getting the food right. And I think we've been able to do that, and we want to continue that as we open additional locations. We want that to be our hallmark.
Well, it's the dream of every business is be a combination of Chick-fil-A and Disney.
If
I mean,
you
if we
can.
could pull that off,
Yeah.
I mean, and so what I would say is
It took them a long time
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah. And
very long
remember
time.
we got to point like this now. If we
Yeah.
if we can't point with one finger because
Yeah.
it's Disney. We got to do a couple. But no, what I will tell you is that it seems as though you got a lot of students. You can tell that you've really worked hard with them. And like I said, I came in the one day. It's time for me to go back, obviously, but I came in the one day, and I think I don't think you were there that day. I think I ran into you in the parking lot. It was maybe
Yeah.
a couple years ago.
That's right.
And every time I'm over on that side of town, I'm like, oh, I got to get this appointment. And I need to. I'm Stabler. We got to go. We got to get a group of us to go over there. But it's just a great
Come do
place.
the podcast one day, man.
Yeah, we'll
Come
do it in the
from
store.
Zesto, yeah.
Yeah.
We've got a guy that does a sports podcast now
Right.
every Saturday morning at Zesto, so that's pretty cool.
We can do it on location
And
sometime.
we'd love
Yeah.
to have you over.
Yeah, no, definitely. I told you we're trying to branch out on that, but no, what we'll do is I think it was Mind the Wings. We're going to take a little bit longer, and I think the best thing you guys do is say, look, I don't have something sitting out there to feed you. I'm going to cook it right now. It's going to be fresh, and I like that mentality.
Yeah, and I think when we first got started, there was a real education process that we had to go through with our customers. A lot of people Zesto was actually in Winston-Salem originally.
Yep.
The original Zesto shut down had to be like mid to late 90s. Right around that time. And the original Zesto was more what we would call quick service food, so similar to a McDonald's, a Wendy's, a Hardee's, a Burger King, where you are going to get your food in about 3 minutes or less, typically, unless they've got something else going on.
Let's show them the website here real quick. So this is the Zesto's website. You guys can check it out. So that's it. So basically here what we've got is, this is the first store, but there's more coming. But you were saying, I'm sorry, I just want to put the website up there so people know, know where to go.
You brought up a great point about the fact that all the food's made fresh, and we do try to educate people about that. And
Right.
I think initially when people came to see us when we opened in 2018, they expected more of a quick service model where you get food in 3 to 5 minutes. When in reality at Zesto, you're going to get food in about 5 to 10 minutes. If you're ordering that Chubby Decker burger, that burger, it's a fresh burger. It's cooked from raw. So it's going to take 6 or 7 minutes to prepare and another minute or two to dress it and get it out to you. But it's going to be fresh. The quality's there. And quite frankly, the price is affordable for that level of freshness. We are working on expanding. We have more what we call an owner-occupied model, owner-operator model, excuse me. We actually partnered with Goler CDC on this store
Right.
that came to East Winston, and we've already recruited a owner-operator for a store in Lexington.
Right.
He's working through his financing as we
Okay.
speak. Myself, along with another group of partners, have acquired another building here in Winston-Salem on University Parkway, where we're looking to do the second Zesto. Hopefully, we'll get that open by the end of this year.
Okay.
So we've got 2 or 3 more in the pipeline that we're working on, and I mean we hope to 10 years from now, we hope to bring a Zesto to just about every community here in North Carolina.
So, all right, Zesto's closes in the 90s. So how did you know how to get, where did you find, because this, so people know this, there's a little history with Zestos in your family.
It is, yeah.
So your grandmother was the manager of the original Zestos.
Yes, I thankfully, my grandparents raised me. My mom had me when she was 17 years old, and they didn't want her to have to drop out of school and make some of those bad decisions. And so my grandparents raised me, and my grandmother actually was the manager at the Zesto. Zesto was actually right across the street from our house,
right
on Liberty Street.
Okay.
So I grew up eating at Zesto all the time, and
working and all that kind of stuff, because
used to help out a little bit. The actual
trash cans, all that stuff.
The owners of Zesto
right
actually owned the corner store right next to, on the other side of my house.
Right.
And so I would help Phil and John and these guys out whenever they needed help. I'm still friends with them today,
right.
which is pretty interesting. So you fast forward. I was working with a food group here in the region. We had gotten involved with a burger fry concept that we were developing. I had a lot of ideas about what I thought that concept should do. My partners didn't necessarily agree with me, and so I got out of that partnership. I got out of that project and wanted to go off and do my own thing.
Right.
And I just remembered the Zesto name.
Right.
I just remembered Zesto being in town. And so I contacted the group that acquired the federal trademark in the 90s,
mm-hmm.
and they're based out of Nebraska. And long story short, I ended up partnering with them to get a master license to use the name.
Right.
Relaunched the concept, redid the menu, and then obviously we opened the store here in Winston-Salem with Goler.
Really? And so now, do they still own the franchise, or do they still own the name, or you bought it? I don't understand that.
So they have a federal trademark to the name.
Okay.
And we have a master license to use the name.
Okay.
And then the actual menu and the concept itself is what Wharton Gladden or myself, that's what we created and owned. So
okay.
we're in partnership with this group out in Nebraska to be able to use the Zesto name.
Right.
But the concept and the menu and all the moving parts to it is what I work for. I worked for 2 years actually developing the Zesto menu. I was actually doing a interview with a food blogger the other day, and he was talking about how good the French fries were, and I said I'm not exaggerating. For a year I searched for those French fries. I went around to probably 11 or 12 different states eating burgers, fries. I went to every there are still Zestos existing here in the country,
mm-hmm.
and so I went to every Zesto I could get out to in about a 2-week time span. Documented it on Facebook and
mm-hmm.
Instagram, but just spent a tremendous amount of time thinking through the menu, the concept, the look and feel of it, the whole business model.
And I believe you, because that's how you are.
I ate too many hamburgers.
Yeah,
I tell
but
you.
And you made a flub a few minutes ago, but it wasn't a flub, and that was owner occupied. You lived at that place. I mean, you're finally not living there every day, but you're still there a lot.
I am.
But you're an owner occupied.
Yeah.
It's not an owner operator. You really put a lot of time into that, and it. What I love is how many people that somebody will stop by and see, you'll take a picture of them and say, hey, thanks for coming by. You have. You've achieved a goal of mine, which was, as I was telling somebody this, I've lived in Winston-Salem since '77. In 2012, I walked onto this Winston-Salem State campus. First time I've ever been there. That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And so one of the things, I got involved with the athletics and the quarterback club, and I was like, why don't we do this? Because, if the other team doesn't bring their band, have like West Forsyth come over and play, and we give everybody a ticket and stuff like that. Because I think that, as you and I both know, 52 is a line. And we got to stop
a dividing line, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we got to stop that. And how do we fix that? And I know that now that the road's open, Jeff McIntosh had talked about it. Basically we've got to unite, because we're all only here for a limited period of time, and everybody should be getting along.
Well, I recall in 2009 when my good friends Derwin Montgomery and James Taylor was elected to the council.
Right.
Way before they had any kind of East End plan discussions or East End plan meetings, we hosted the first discussion redeveloping east of 52 at the Piedmont Club when I had the Piedmont Real Estate Council going
Right.
back then. I know you used to come to a lot of those meetings too. And so we had a conversation, 11 years ago about the need to do something in East Winston. And so, back in 2016 when I started, relaunching the Zesto concept and trying to think through where we would put the first location in Winston-Salem, I literally could have went anywhere. I could have went to the west side of town, and quite frankly, we'd probably be our sales would be higher if we were on that side of town. But I got with Derwin Montgomery, who was still on council at the time. I got with James Taylor, and we all consciously made a decision that it was important to do something east of 52, but even more importantly, since Zesto was originally east of 52, that the first location should go back on that side of town.
East of 52.
And so we were very thankful that Goler CDC got involved and agreed to partner and be involved. The city played a significant role. Derwin led a lot of that and ushered it through. And so we were, as you mentioned before, we were able to bring back the first restaurant on that side of town in about 20 years. Now, most people at the time told me no way possible that people from downtown or the west side of town would come over to Zesto if it was in East Winston. And I disagreed.
They will for you.
Well, not even for me. I don't know if it's for me.
I'm still going to say they will for you.
Well, thank you.
Right.
I'll take that. But I believe that when you give people a reason to come and you give people a reason to do something, they will. So we really focused hard on making sure the food was good, that the service was just as good as anything you would see in downtown or any other place in Winston-Salem, that the facility was clean, that it looked really cool and something you wanted to be a part of. And, we're very proud to say that we've got a number of people on any given day who come out of downtown to come have lunch at Zesto. And this past Saturday when I was over at the store, there was a couple there eating lunch, and this couple had driven 25 minutes from Clemens to come have lunch at Zesto. And I asked them, I said, well, did you come on this side of town for some other reason and you just happened to come here? And they said, no, we came here for Zesto. And so what we've been able to do in about 2 years, and it's still a very painful process. We're not where we need to be yet. But what we've been able to do is create some kind of a destination where folks feel like, hey, this is a place I want to go. The food is good. The experience is great. And I'm someone that really believes food really unites a lot of us. I mean, I always say food is love if you follow me online. And it really unites us. I mean, whether you're white, black, short, tall, fat, skinny, poor, rich, whatever your category is or whatever label you happen to be wearing, everybody has to eat. And everybody likes good food. And when good food's in the mix, people love to have great conversation. And it's what really, really unites us. And that's what we're trying to do at Zesto.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's excellent. I look forward to hearing where the new store is going to go here in Winston, but also I know that you've been getting a lot of love from Lexington. They're excited about you coming down there too. So
they've actually been driving up here on Saturdays. On Saturdays right now, we'll see 10 or 15 people come in from Lexington because they're just so they're curious about what we're doing. So
well, the other thing that people need to know is make sure you get there early because the lot fills up quick.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell you,
small lot,
small lot, but yeah. And then you play the music so I can sit outside in my car and get some sun and listen to the music too. But no, it's awesome. All right, so we share this in common. We're both past Winston-Salem State University adjunct professors.
Yeah.
Did you like doing that?
I did. I actually miss it from
I
time
do
to
too.
time. I used to teach a commercial real estate class over there, a commercial real estate development class, and at the time there were some folks over on campus who were really forward thinking and thought that exposing those students to commercial real estate development would be really interesting. We also allowed people who were not students at WSSU to come to those classes too for continuing education credit. So.
Right.
I do miss doing that. I did that for maybe 3 or 4 years before we decided to cut it off. Yeah,
I did 2 semesters. I did intro to business, but my first semester was sales and sales team management. And I still am. I've got a young lady right now that's trying to get into a program, and I still have 2 or 3 of my students that I have a fairly decent conversation with at least once or so every 6 months or so. And I will tell you, I think that those kids are awesome.
Yeah, I even
they taught me a lot.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I had a good friend of mine here in town, Bob Leake, with Winston-Salem Business Inc. was doing a real estate class
At
with
Wake.
Wake, and he would bring me in every semester to help out or support the portion on finance, real estate finance. And so I was doing that at the same time I was doing the class over at WSSU. So I actually missed both, being around the students. And
Because I know Wendy did that one with you with Bob.
she did.
Yeah.
She did. Yeah. That was many, many years ago. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's see. I want to ask you about this. We'll get into this. I want to show the website on this in a minute here too. But and then we've got a couple more things. Okay. So is it your grandparents' names, Wharton Gladden? Is that where that came from?
Yes. My grandmother's name was Irene Wharton, and my grandfather's name was Frank Gladden.
All right. So Wharton Gladden, that's where that came from. What a wonderful explanation for me as a boutique investment banking firm. What the heck is Wharton Gladden?
Yeah, I mean we're a self-described boutique investment banking firm, but yeah, I mean what we ultimately do is we provide advice to companies, and we started out almost exclusively providing real estate finance advisory work to developers and large companies and that kind of thing. So when I first came into the market, I used to work a lot on like shopping centers and office buildings and apartment complexes, and I still do some of that kind of work when invited. But probably about 5 or 6 years ago, one company that I was working with really closely was J&S Cafeteria.
Mm-hmm.
They really needed someone to come and work inside of the operation more as a CFO. And so we structured a contract, and I went to work with them for about 3 years, just helping to restructure the company. And that was really how I got introduced to food service. And from there, I started working more with food service-based companies. So to a lot of people who see me from the market, they think I'm just this restaurant guy, but it really evolved to that point. I used to do a lot of real estate work.
Sidebar.
And then I got more into restaurants, and then I've even done some work with community banks too, so providing strategic advice to community banks that are either looking to start or looking to develop capital market programs for the bank, or whatever the need might be. But ultimately, when you hear investment banking firm, I think the best way to think about that is strategic advice is what we provide.
One of my terms that I love is plug. You're a plug. So basically what you're doing is if you look on your website and start to look at some of these, you're working with some big companies, and so what is that information they need, and that's what you're providing, correct? Is that?
Yeah, I mean sometimes it is finance or investment related. Maybe they need to go out and raise more capital, or they need some type of debt financing, or whatever that need might be, or maybe they want to sell the company and they're looking for someone to advise them through that process, or maybe the company's not quite growing the right way, so there's some restructuring that we need to look at, and I can provide what I call like top level advice, where I just say, hey, this is what I think you need to do, or it can get very granular, where I actually get more involved in the actual operation, which is what I did with J&S. So like right now I'm working with a group out of Virginia, Scrimp Shack, which is a fast casual seafood concept. They've got 30 locations, but just opened one here in Winston-Salem.
Peters Creek Parkway.
Silas Creek Parkway is the actual address.
Right.
But yeah, you can get to it off
in the old K&S. So that's where our first store was, K&S News.
Yeah.
Parkway Plaza Shopping Center.
In that shopping center,
Yeah.
and so I'm working with the franchise group to. We're looking at restructuring some of the operations. We're looking at some things around branding and communications to help people learn more about the concept. But yeah, I mean, I come in and try to identify what the need is and go from there.
So I'm smiling because you're going to love this story. So my dad's 95, okay? I'm taking him to the airport one morning. It's actually, this morning we did a show because I talked about it was the day that I recorded the mayor, right? So I'm talking with him about the something, and we're just having a conversation. Come around the corner, and he goes, I get that. One of my friends told me there's a new restaurant over here on town. I'm like, yeah. I go, really? He goes, yeah. So I don't remember what the name of it was. My friend told me it's got the best sandwich in town, and I'm like, really? And so I was telling my wife about this. So I drive down, and you're going, and I always say that Parkway Plaza is the L. So
Yeah.
the long L's down towards the Chinese place, the short L's back towards where, Adam and Eve, and where, I don't even know if that's there anymore, but I know they're
Yeah, I think it's gone now.
but where the shrimp shack
Yeah.
was. So because we were here, and then we were in where the opening is, and then we were over near there. But so I look up and I see the sign, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And I go, yeah, Dad, I hear it's the best sandwich in town, too. It's written on the building.
Yeah.
And so my wife just thought that was hilarious because that's typical my dad, reads every sign or stuff like that. But,
Oh, is he?
yeah,
Does
but so I don't know if he's
We
had a
need to
chance
get him
go by.
over to actually
We
try
can take
what
him to
they're doing.
Zesto's.
Yeah.
That's where we need to go.
Bring them to both. Bring them
All
to
right.
both.
But so let's show the website for Wharton Gladden, and you can navigate on there. Click. I learned a lot about you on there through your the bio and stuff. But the thing that impressed me most was the number of companies that you worked with. So we can click on that, and so we'll show the website. Click on that to show you exactly what we're talking about there. All right, so the one thing on your website that, as I said, you've worked with all these things. I have a question, and what's your favorite project you've worked on at Wharton Gladden?
Yeah, I've worked on a lot, and but the one I would say mostly stands out for me would be we did a student housing project in Greensboro over near North Carolina A&T for a gentleman by the name of Mr. Tipton, an African American gentleman, actually owned one of the largest minority-owned student housing complexes in the region.
Mm-hmm.
And he built it mainly during the years when everything was going great, and when the 2008 crisis came, and then subsequently the capital locked up in 2009. He had to go through a restructuring, or he was going to lose that project. And he basically, this gentleman was, at the time he had to be 60 or 70 years old, so he had put everything he had into the student housing project. And so I was very proud. We worked with him for probably 2 to 3 years. Worked him through a restructure with all of his lenders. In the end, he was able to keep the property. And then subsequently, he went on, and obviously, when everything stabilized and got better, he liquidated it and moved on. But I've worked on many projects, but I would say that's the one that I'm most proud of, and the one where I probably got the closest with my actual client. I mean,
Right.
I used to spend a lot of time with him and his wife, and he was ill at the time, and I think the struggle he was going through made him even more ill. Got to know all his family, spent a lot of times at his daughter's house, just really got to know the entire family really well, and so yeah, that was by far the best project I've ever worked on.
Cool. What's the Power of One Fund?
So the Power of One Fund is something that we created many years ago through Wharton Gladden. A lot of our clients and a lot of the partners and relationships we have would all tell me, hey, I really want to do more for the community, but I really don't know where to start. There's so many nonprofits, there's so many needs, and I think a lot of companies and a lot of individuals just get paralysis from analysis, right?
Yep.
Like, I don't know where I should give the money. And so we created the Power of One Fund. You could join for $1,000, and your money essentially gets leveraged with membership dollars from a lot of other participants. And then our advisory board makes a decision about where those dollars should go.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you as a donor or member, you can feel a little bit trusted that, hey, the money's going to end up in the right place. And you don't necessarily have to be the one that's doing all the analysis to figure out where it goes.
Right.
So it's a fund that we created with the National Christian Foundation. I guess that would have been back in 2010, if I've got my years right. And NCF actually manages the money. So Wharton Gladden doesn't touch the money. It doesn't necessarily go into our bank account. It goes
Right.
directly to them. They manage it. We evaluate different nonprofits that fit the focus of the fund. And then NCF actually cuts a check directly to those organizations. So for the last several years, we focused mostly on organizations that are doing things with substance abuse, domestic violence, and homelessness. And those three initiatives, I would say, would be the three initiatives that impacted me the most when I was coming up as a child. So
Mm-hmm.
I had family members who were either addicted to alcohol or drugs. My mom was a victim of domestic violence. And right outside of the house that we had on Liberty Street, we had a a number of homeless individuals that my grandmother used to actually feed at our kitchen table many nights. So those were three things that I just, grew up, that was around me as I grew up. And so those were three areas that I wanted to try to make a difference in.
You help what you know.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's cool. I wanted to know what that was. I'd seen that on the website. All right, so you're able to do something that I can't do, and that's complete a sentence on a piece of paper. So tell me about this Chronicle writer and Yes Weekly.
Yeah, so I guess back in 2017, my good friends James Taylor and Derwin Montgomery acquired the Winston-Salem Chronicle.
Mm-hmm.
And, James came to me, and at the time I had been writing a blog anyway, and, and every now and then, like the Business Journal and some other publications might pick up what I was writing, but it wasn't consistent. It was just sort of irregular. And, James has always been a big fan of mine, which I really, really appreciate, and I try to support him just as well. He asked if I wanted to start writing for the Chronicle, and it started out me maybe writing once or twice a month, and people really, like, for whatever reason, I'm still trying to figure it out. People actually enjoyed it.
Weird, isn't it? Yeah,
So people
right.
liked it, and because I would write these articles, and sometimes I was wondering if anybody actually saw it, and so people started asking more about it, and that evolved into me doing it. Now I do it weekly, and they give me a lot of freedom, which I really appreciate. I talk a lot about what's going on here in Winston-Salem, local politics, the local economy. I've obviously talked a lot about our small business community here in town, but then they also give me the freedom to talk about things at a state and national level too. So I've written about things that's going on in the Trump administration and some other areas, and I think through that Charles Womack with Yes Weekly started reading some of my articles, and we started a conversation like last summer. And originally, he wanted to try to take the same content that I was submitting to the Chronicle and essentially just run it in Yes Weekly. Mm-hmm. And James at the Chronicle wasn't too keen on that idea. So Charles and I kept talking, and Charles noticed that I spent a lot of time going out visiting restaurants and getting to know the owners and operators behind a lot of restaurants in town. And so he really wanted to try to cover some of that in Yes Weekly. And so we agreed to start working together. So my first article actually just came out this week, and it was about one casino, Enrico Hernandez at Xcaret, and then they're launching a new bar on 4th Street called Bar La Chingada that's been getting a lot of attention on social media.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, and so I'm with the Chronicle and Yes Weekly. So so I will say this: it is fun, and I enjoy it because you get to share your ideas, and people read it, and either they think you're crazy or they think you're smart, or one or the other. But what I really, really enjoy is just being able to tell people stories. That it's a lot of work, but it is fun.
Yeah,
it is.
No, and I've enjoyed it. The thing I like about the Chronicle is James is like, you know what? Just come read my paper. There's no login. There's no
paywalls,
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Just come read my paper.
Yeah.
I have the pleasure of serving with James on the ABC board.
Okay.
And so we've become friends. I'd say that. I don't, I always say that to everybody when I say I introduce you as my friend. I'm like, is that okay to say that? But so I like James a lot, and it's a hidden gem. A lot of people don't know about the Chronicle.
That's right.
But your articles on there, I've enjoyed every one of them. And then there's sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree. But it is funny because you're one person that I think if people read your articles, they sometimes might think you vote one way, but you might vote the other way. And that's the goal. I mean, it's. I
try to keep them guessing. Yeah.
I was at an event, and the guy that wrote Nixon's resignation, his name's David, and I cannot remember but he works at CNN, and he was a guest speaker at this event, and he was talking about this upcoming election, and he said, here's what I'm going to tell you: there's never going to be a better time for the Democratic Party to win the presidency. And then he looked out at people. He says, "Be prepared. Donald Trump's going to win."
Yeah.
And the reason why he says is because if you saw the debate the last few weeks ago, all that's going to happen is the party's going to infight. They're going to tear each other down.
Yeah.
And they're going to, and he was saying, and I mean, this is a year ago. This guy's saying this. They'll mess it up. And it's just it's amazing to me if people just had the view of let's help everybody. And I think we'd go much further. I like local politics a lot more.
Yeah.
Well,
and it matters a lot more, and but it also tends to be the area people are less educated and most unfamiliar with,
and most passionate about too.
Yeah. Yeah, the people who do pay attention are probably your most passionate people in politics, but unfortunately, I mean, there's a lot of people who don't pay attention. I mean, if you look at all 4 elections where the president is not on the ballot, I mean, you're getting somewhere around 15 or 20% voter turnout if you're lucky.
If you're lucky,
and sometimes I even see voter turnout more around 10%.
Yeah, like small municipalities, you're getting like 9% or stuff like that.
So people don't seem to pay attention unless it's something going on at the national level.
I got lucky on one aspect when the big guy made me, and that is you could sit here and tell me I'm an idiot for who I voted for, and I'm going to hear what you say, and I'm going to appreciate your view, and then we're okay. Whereas in some people, if you say you voted for X or Y, they don't ever talk to you again, or they ban you from their Facebook page.
Yeah.
It's just like, golly, guys, just calm down. It's just life.
Well, I think people that are unable to hear a different voice are probably less convicted by their own beliefs, and because they're not as convicted by their own beliefs, it's very easy for them to be swayed and pushed, and they realize that, and so they tend to try to block out a lot of the other noise. Me, on the other hand, I tend to be someone that's very convicted by what I believe, and not that I cannot be swayed, but I try to be more of a pragmatist and more of a consensus builder. So when you do read the articles I write in the Chronicle, or read anything I write in general, or if you follow me on Facebook or Twitter, or Instagram, or LinkedIn, wherever, it is probably very difficult for you to determine where I'm at on any given issue. And I think that we have to be careful not to get so pigeonholed in one party or one ideology or one thought. The world and life in general is just a lot more complex than that. I mean, there's a lot of gray out there, and there's a lot of different variables that play all the time. And you would be smart to pay attention to that, and not be a part of some monolithic movement, so to say.
How many of us would watch football if the announcers cheered for the team?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so, all right, I've said we were going to talk about this. You locked in.
Yeah.
What is locked in?
Yeah, it's actually something that goes back to my teenage years. You hear the word hustling or grinding or whatever term people use. And back in the day when my cousin and I, when we were focused on something, we'd say we're locked in. I'm locked in on this right now. Or if he called me and said, "Hey, you want to go to this party on Friday?" I can't right now. I'm locked in, man. Right. I can't do it. And so we started saying that, and then as I got a little older, I just kept using that phrase. And really, the philosophy around it is to just you've got to find something that you're most passionate about, something that you're willing to put a tremendous amount of energy on in it, and then you just got to lock in on whatever that is. And laser focused. Don't let go. Sometimes you got to lock in on yourself, meaning that you've got to be to a point in life where you're able to ignore and not hear all the voices that are trying to send you in a direction that you don't want to go. Again, you've got to be convicted by your own beliefs. And so I just try to remind people to find something that you're passionate about, find something that you can put a tremendous amount of energy behind it. And whatever that is, whatever that happens to be, like even your intern with the video work, if you're really passionate about video work, lock in on it. You learn everything you can about it. You put a tremendous amount of energy behind it, and it'll take you somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do know one thing you're locked in on. Your daughter.
Yes.
And we were talking about that. My daughter's 5 now, and your daughter's in 16?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Just turned 16 and past September. And
one of the things we talked about is as guys raising a daughter, it's yeah. I don't know. But I have to provide my daughter positive role models, all these different things. And so you've been so successful with your daughter. I've seen her a couple times. She's beautiful, smart young lady who seems to, have it together.
Yeah.
What advice have you got for those of us that are 11 or 12 years behind you?
Yeah, one thing we've tried to do with Ariana is, again, you've heard me constantly mention the word experiences. I think whether it's an experience you have at a restaurant or even an experience you have with your child, people learn from experiences, right? And so early on with our daughter, we tried to expose her to a lot of things that maybe young people wouldn't get exposed to, and certainly experiences that I didn't get exposed to when I was her age.
Mm-hmm.
And so even at a young age, she would come up to the Piedmont Club with me and, have breakfast. And, I would take her to events that I was speaking at. And I remember speaking at a national conference in Washington, D.C., and she came along with me. And so, just by exposing her to different things, I think has helped her tremendously. Last summer, she was finally at an age where she could work, and she came and worked at Zesto the whole summer. And quite frankly, by the end of the summer, she was training other people on what to do. And so I think anyone, whether you got a daughter, son, whatever the case may be, as early as you can start to expose them to different experiences that are going to have some kind of an impact on them, that makes a tremendous difference. But I would also say, because early on when my child was born in 2003, which was the same, she literally was born 2 months before I started Wharton Gladden.
Right.
So early on in her life, I would be busy and I'm out hustling and trying to go to every networking event that I can get into and meet people and create some kind of momentum for this new company I'd started. And if not for her mom, quite frankly, I think her mom has just been tremendous. And now her mother and I are not together, but I got so incredibly lucky that that's my daughter's mom. I mean, she's done so much for her, always been there for her, always, anything she wanted to do, whether it was play tennis or run track, she was right there behind her. Now, granted, I may have done a lot of what I needed to do from a financial perspective, but quite frankly, it was her mom that was always there at those practices, at those meets, and doing that kind of thing.
I've always known that you guys have had a common goal, and you've succeeded. I mean, she's just a neat kid.
And I would say for the people who are listening that are in a similar kind of boat as myself, where maybe you separated from that other parent, I think the objective at that point is to you still have to co-parent, you still have to communicate, you still have to be on the same page. And that's something her mom and I have just made, kept very central. Despite the fact our relationship didn't work out, we wanted our daughter to have the best possible.
That's awesome. All right, so we got just a few minutes left. I want to touch on Providence Kitchen. You're doing something at the old train station?
Yeah, so the city of Winston-Salem took Union Station, which is located adjacent to WSSU.
Right.
Used to be Davis Garage, is
Right.
what most people might remember it as. But well before it was Davis Garage, it was an active train station. And so the city acquired it, spent $18 million on rehabbing it or renovating it. The city's transportation department is now on the ground level. Winston-Salem State is actually moving some offices to the second floor. I think they're bringing admissions over and some other functions.
Right.
And the vision for the third level is for a restaurant to occupy that space. And so myself, along with the Winston-Salem Urban League, which is James Perry, and then Chef Jeff Bacon, who's with Providence Kitchen, which is a part of Second Harvest Food Bank, we put together a collaboration and looking to take over that space.
That's
and
awesome.
Obviously going down the road right now with the city to be able to get the lease. But it, what I would want your listeners to know and understand, it's so much bigger than just another restaurant. If you know anything about Providence, they've done a great job, from a culinary education perspective, which we think is a workforce development initiative. We want to take what Providence has done to the next level. So not only training people on how to cook and how to be sanitary, but if you want to get out and start your own restaurant, if you want to become a caterer, if you want to start a food truck, we want to have a more entrepreneurial component associated with the training and education as well. We want to train people on how to be managers. We want to engage with WSSU and the business students at WSSU and get them into the restaurant so they can learn more about hospitality and food service. So we're really trying to take the platform that Providence has created and done so well with, and just leverage it even greater with the concept that we're looking to do at Union Station.
Okay. All right, so we're going to end it with this. Got just a couple minutes.
Yeah.
And I just cannot thank you enough for being here. You're awesome. I enjoy every time I get a chance to talk to you because I always learn something. Where do you see us going, and where do you want us going in the city of Winston-Salem?
That's a great question. And where I see us going and where I want us to go, there's probably a big divide. And, unfortunately, Winston-Salem really has a number of structural challenges and issues that I think we need to have a serious conversation about. When you look at private sector job growth in our community, it literally is barely higher than what it was in 2000, which was 20 years ago.
All right.
Over the last 20 years, we've lost 14 publicly traded corporate headquarters in this town. We've only got one left, which is Haynes Brand, once the sale of Primo Water is completed.
Right.
Our median wage in Winston-Salem is $2 below the national average. Our average wage in Winston-Salem is below our counterparts in Charlotte and Raleigh. Right now, when you look at people that are moving into North Carolina, somewhere around 7 out of 10 people that show up to North Carolina go to either Raleigh or Charlotte. The other 3 go to the other 98 counties that are in North Carolina. So Winston-Salem is not getting the best of the best.
Right.
We're getting the best of the rest. And when you look at how we perform with millennials, Smart Asset just released a report about where millennials like to locate and live. North Carolina was in the top 5. Raleigh, Charlotte was in the top 10. Greensboro was number 18. Winston-Salem wasn't even on the list. So that's significant. So we've got some real leading universities here in our community. At Wake Forest, Wake Forest is recruiting somewhere, I forget the number, but a strong percentage of the people that are going to Wake Forest don't live in North Carolina. They're coming from some other place.
Like New Jersey and
New
stuff
Jersey,
like that.
New York, and other places. We've got the School of the Arts. We got Salem College. They recruit from all over the world. People come from all over the world to go to those institutions.
Yep.
WSSU's in town. And they do
And
a heck of a
Piedmont,
job.
too.
They're a leading HBCU, and they recruit from all over the country. So it's not that we don't have these millennials come into town. We do a terrible job at keeping them and retaining them and giving them a reason to stay in town. I think what we've got to figure out here, where I would like to see the community go, and there's a lot of smart people working on it. I've talked to Mark Owens, who's with the Winston-Salem Chamber, and I really like the work he's doing. I know our mayor, he recognizes that this is a huge need, and you've got people like Jeff McIntosh on council that's really smart and wanting to see the city grow. So there's certainly plenty of people in town
We all want it. How
that
do we
wanted
get
to see
there?
it, want to see it happen. But we've got to do a better job at recruiting companies, large companies that create more jobs than just the next hotel, apartment complex, brewery, or restaurant.
Right.
We've got to figure out how to do more workforce development in this community so that we can raise the median wage, so that people who are working in factories yesterday can some kind of way get the skills necessary to go work in Innovation Quarter today.
Right.
Right now, lab technicians in Innovation Quarter make on average $70,000 or $80,000, well above the median wage.
Right.
But because we don't have enough people trained in our own community to take those jobs, we actually import those jobs from places like Massachusetts and Boston and California and other places. So we're bringing those opportunities to Winston, but the people who live here, and quite frankly, the people who pay taxes to subsidize a lot of what's going on down there, are not necessarily the ones that are winning. So we've got to look stronger at workforce development. We've got to some kind of way figure out how to raise the median wage. And when you raise the median wage, you create more discretionary income so that all these restaurants, bars, and breweries and apartment complexes that are getting created, people actually have dollars to go spend at these places.
Right.
So, yeah, we're not facing anything in this community that we can't overcome. But one main thing we've got to do, and I think this has been going on in Winston-Salem for far too long, we still don't really know what we want to be or who we are. And if you was to go around to just about any resident in town and ask them to define what is the identity of Winston-Salem, I think they would struggle to do it. I actually think there's some leadership in town that would struggle to do it, okay?
Yeah.
And so, one moment we want to be like Raleigh. The next moment we want to be like Charlotte. Then we want to be like San Antonio.
Chattanooga.
Then we want to be like,
Greenville.
Greenville. And we hear all these things. Well, let's stop trying to be like all these other people and figure out what we are. What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What are our opportunities? And leverage that into some kind of identity. But right now, we have been stuck for about 20 years in an identity crisis.
Yeah. No. Excellent. All right. So you've just heard from Algenon Cash. We've been locked in here on Camel City Chat. As we've said many times before, please like, subscribe, tell your friends about us. And I can't say anything other than besides thank you, before I do that, go to Zesto's, get a burger.
Please.
Milkshake, they're great. But thank you so very
No,
much.
thank you, man.
I really appreciate it.
This is good.
All right, we'll see you next time on the chat. And again, please tell all your friends to like, subscribe, and we'll be back next week with more Camel City Chat.